What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Create Art with Jazz. My name is Jasmine, and my mission here is to create, inspire, and motivate. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. Hi, and for today's tutorial, we are going to get started creating iPad art. Today I will be using the iPad 6th generation along with the Apple Pencil, and I'm also using the program Adobe Draw, which is Adobe Illustrator Draw. So I'm starting with a sketch pad and pencil. So the point of using the sketch pad to begin with is just to get your ideas out. You want to make sure that you have a solid idea before going on to the iPad. And so start by thinking about what you want your character to look like, what's your character's background, what are they into, what's their purpose, and focus on a picture first before you move to the iPad. So you want to just sketch out a nice detailed picture of what you think your character will look like. Now, you don't have to put a lot of detail with the pencil, but I want you to keep in mind all of the details that you envision that will be on your character. Is it a man or woman, boy or girl? Are they a warrior? Is it more about fashion? You can also use photo references for ideas for wardrobe and hairstyles and things like that. And you may want to accessorize your character. So Pinterest is a good place to start, or Google, to come up with ideas that fit your vision. I already have a vision for what my character will look like, and I'm mainly going to focus on the fashion aspect, and I want my character to have really big curly hair. I want it to be on the cartoony side, and I want it to just have a really nice fun flow to it. So I'm taking my time, and right now I'm just drawing the direction of the hair, making sure that it's going the right way. When you're drawing curls, make sure you repeat similar curl patterns. So you want to pay close attention to that, and just take your time at this stage and draw in all the little details that you want. And I'm going in and drawing in the baby hair and the ears. And this is just me mapping out what my character will look like. I'm not going to do any shading at this point, and I won't be adding any color either. So you just want to really use this as a guide. When we're done sketching everything out, we're going to take this drawing and put it into the Adobe Illustrator app, and that can be done a few different ways. You can take a photo of it with your iPad with the camera, and you can also scan it into your iPad with a scanner app. So I'm putting in the necessary information, and you really want to outline the eyes, the lips, nose, all the features that you want to color in. Have that nice strong outline so that you can bring it into the Adobe Illustrator app. Also, you can use a different app. This is just the app of my preference for this cartoon. There's a certain look that I wanted to have, and I find that the Adobe Illustrator app allows me to make that look, and I'm very comfortable with using that app. But there are lots of apps out there, so I suggest that you explore as many of them as possible until you find the ones that you're comfortable with. I like to use Adobe Draw. I also like to use Procreate and an app called Art Rage. I think with art, you should always try to learn something new and have fun with it and explore different things. So a little bit about me. I began painting at the age of 4, and I always loved creating and making paintings to hang on my wall. And by the time I was about 8 years old, I had entered some art contests, and I had my art featured in a hotel before. So I always had a passion for art, and I even covered my whole room with art around the age of about 9. So I had did all types of paintings and pictures. And then I also did a huge wall mural of a mermaid on my wall with the beach scene. So art is something that is a part of my life, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I've always branched out and used charcoal, watercolor, pencil, pen, acrylic, scratchboard. I've tried sculptures. I've tried just about everything that you can imagine when it comes to art. I also have a background in airbrushing and graphic design. When I first discovered digital art, I was so fascinated by it. I had no clue how it was being done, but I was really intrigued and I knew that I wanted to try it. I have a friend of mine that's in the video game industry, and he contacted me and we had a conversation because I was only doing traditional art at the time. And he told me that I should try digital art, and he told me all the supplies that I should get. So when I first started digital painting, I actually started with the Wacom bamboo tablet. Once I got the hang of it, I was completely hooked, and I was digital painting night and day. I still do some traditional painting, and I also do airbrushing, but I really enjoy the convenience of digital painting, and especially on my iPad because it's mobile. You can take it anywhere and it takes up minimum space. So I really enjoy the portability of being able to do your artwork on the go and then being able to take it home. I love the airdrop feature, and I like to take my artwork and just airdrop it to my MacBook and fix it up in there. So we're going to continue to sketch out our character. You can make this part of the process as detailed as you want. I'm trying not to go too detailed with it, but I do want to have a solid outline so that I know exactly where I want my paint to go. And as you start to paint, you can break away from this outline and get more creative. It's just a guide to start you off. If you have any questions about character creation and how to get inspiration, just leave me a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can see more videos like this and learn more on how to become a better artist. So we're going to move in and draw in more details in the hair. Sometimes when you're doing complicated hairstyles like braids and curls, you can kind of get lost when you're painting. So it's always good if you're new to this to start out with a strong outline. And I'm going to define the braids and define the waves in her hair so that when I go to paint, I know which direction to take my paint strokes into. You can use the same technique to bring this into Photoshop or Illustrator on your computer. If you don't have an iPad, you can still follow along that way. The same principles apply even though you're using a different app. And one thing that I like to do in the Adobe Illustrator app and also in Photoshop is to do a multiply layer. So you'll see when we bring the cartoon in, I will have the sketch on the multiply layer, and I'll start my painting underneath that layer. So when you do it that way, you're not interrupting your sketch at all, and you can still see the artwork underneath. The color that you'll see will be slightly darker than the color that you'll have at the end, so keep that in mind. And you can turn that layer on and off, and you can also turn the opacity down on that layer if that gets confusing for you. I love starting these paintings off on traditional paper because I feel a little more freer. It's something that I'm more used to using, so it feels more natural to me than drawing it out on the iPad. I noticed that I love to paint on the iPad, but the sketching and drawing part, I don't like to do that as much as I like to do on a sketch pad with a pencil. If you're using the Apple Pencil, make sure that your pencil has been charged up. And the way that you get it started is that you charge it and then you stick it into your iPad. If you're using the newest iPad and Apple Pencil that came out, you can charge it simply by placing it on top of your iPad. So I'm using the Apple Pencil 1 and I'm making sure that it's charged and I'm placing it into my iPad so that it's connected to the programs. When you're designing your character, make sure that your character is original, keep it fun, try to branch out there and don't do things that you've seen already, and just be original with your artwork. That will help set you apart from other artists. I see a lot of artists on the internet copying each other and doing each other's styles. And there's nothing wrong with that, but branch out there and come up with your own style. You can always be inspired by another artist's style and add that into your own style as well. And you can always develop your style from a combination of different styles that you like. I'm really into fashion and hair. A lot of my drawings will reflect that. I love to be creative with different hairstyles in real life and in my drawings. So you can just have fun with it, whatever you're into. Put that into your artwork and make it fun for you. Before I began this sketch, I had a nice idea of what I wanted, but it was nothing set in stone. So I'm just coming up with this off the top as I'm going along, and I'm going to be making changes along the way. Don't rush this process because this will be very important when you begin to add your color and when you bring it into the iPad. So take your time, make sure you have everything mapped out. Also pay attention to composition, keep those things in mind, and keep in mind the type of picture that you want. Do you want it long or wide? Are you making this for your Instagram? So you may want to keep the design within a square shape. So have all of that figured out before you go to the next stage. At this point, you can really have fun with your sketch. Remember, we're in the sketch phase. So if you do something that you don't want to keep permanently, just go back, erase it, and try again. So you want to keep your sketch very loose, keep your lines very directional, and you have to have the discipline to keep your lines flowing in the same way over and over again, especially when it comes to hair. Sometimes I can do a digital painting and I'll spend more time on the hair than I will on the face. So depending on how much hair the person has, how complicated the hairstyle is, you want to take your time and put all of those details in there. And that goes for a cartoony style or a realistic style. If you're designing something for a client, keep those things in mind when you're thinking about pricing. If you're going to spend more time because the design has a lot of hair or a lot of detail, you want to charge a little extra. So whatever your price is, add extra if you're going to be spending an hour or more on that certain part. Depending on the final look that you want, you can go in and ink your whole sketch. So you can go over those lines and permanently lock them in. For my sketch, I want to erase everything at the end. So I'm just using my sketch as a guide. I'm going to go in Adobe Illustrator Draw and do all of my black lines and definite lines in that program. If you want a comic book style, that is a great idea to ink everything in and draw underneath. For this one, I want it to be more modern, and I want the drawing to be something that you could probably hang up as wall art or wear as a t-shirt design. So I want my lines to be nice and clean, and I don't want them to look sketchy at the end. Take your time and color block in all of the colors in every part of the design. Block in the eyelashes, the eyes. And when you're doing the eyes, make sure you're doing the inside of the eye, the outer color of the eye, and also the eyelashes and eyelid. So I'm just going around and putting in all the details. I'm speeding the video up at this point because this part is taking a lot longer than the sketch, and the actual time for this video was around 3 hours, so I had to compress it down somewhat. And I'm going in with a lot of fun colors. I'm branching out and experimenting with different colors in the hair. I want to keep this bright and fun. I'm using different shades of browns and blondes and just different fun hair colors. So if you notice, I'm keeping the same pattern. I'm not straying away from the pattern, and that does take a lot of self-control. You don't want to mix curls with waves if that was not your desired outcome. My character has really exaggerated features. If you look, the eyes are really large, and I also made the lips larger than usual. Don't be afraid to make your character really cartoony. If it's a cartoon, think about, do you want the head big and the body small? Do you want the hair big and the face smaller? Do you want the jewelry to be big? Whatever it is that you want to emphasize in your character, make sure you bring that out by making it bigger or make the colors brighter. So when you're doing character design, you're also telling a story. You're telling a story within that character. We should be able to look at your character and come up with some kind of conclusion about where the character is from, the time and place, the history of the character. We should be able to know something about that character. So keep in mind storytelling. If it helps you, you can also write a story before you draw the character, or you can even read a story. So it's really good to read books and keep your imagination growing. And you can draw back from the images and pictures that you saw in your mind from the book, and you can make those into characters. And that's one good thing to do. If you ever run out of ideas, read. The character that you picture in your head will always be unique because it's your imagination at work. Two people could read the same book and picture a slightly different character. So think about when you're watching your favorite movie or you're playing your favorite game, the characters always have a sense of time by their wardrobe, their hairstyles. They will also give you clues as to what kind of person they are by the colors that they wear. Bright colors may indicate that your character is fun and outgoing. Darker colors may tell the person looking at the picture that your character is mean or maybe older or more mature. So be conscious of your wardrobe choices, your color choices, and also your composition choices. Those all give away clues as to who your character is. You want to define your character by their wardrobe, their accessories, their hairstyle, even their skin texture can give away some clues to the type of person that they are or tell a story about what they've been through. If you decide that you like your character's face, but maybe you didn't like the hairstyle or wardrobe choice, you can go in with tracing paper and trace over the face and play around with different ideas for hairstyles and wardrobe. And whatever you decide on at the end, you can retrace the whole drawing and maybe make it a darker color so that it shows up well. And then you can use that as your sketch outline. Take your time and color block in all of the colors in every part of the design. Block in the eyelashes, the eyes, and when you're doing the eyes, make sure you're doing the inside of the eye, the outer color of the eye, and also the eyelashes and eyelid. So I'm just going around and putting in all the details. I'm speeding the video up at this point because this part is taking a lot longer than the sketch, and the actual time for this video was around 3 hours, so I had to compress it down somewhat. And I'm going in with a lot of fun colors. I'm branching out and experimenting with different colors in the hair. I want to keep this bright and fun. I'm using different shades of browns and blondes and just different fun hair colors. So if you notice, I'm keeping the same pattern. I'm not straying away from the pattern, and that does take a lot of self-control. You don't want to mix curls with waves if that was not your desired outcome. Don't rush this part, and also remember to have fun with it. You can use different layers if you don't feel comfortable. I like to paint on one layer as much as possible. I may add a few more layers here and there, but I try to stick to one layer. This makes it close to traditional painting, and then you don't end up with a million layers and get all confused because you forgot which layer was which, and then you have to take the time out to name all the layers. But there's nothing wrong if you want to use several different layers, especially if you're just starting. You may do some things that you don't like, or you can always experiment on the other layers and then lower the opacity or delete them at the end. When you're starting to layer up your colors, keep in mind midtones, highlights, and your darker colors. And always, if you're digital painting, I like to start from dark to light. And other forms of art, you can do it differently, but with digital paint, it's nice to have dark to light, and you can always paint on top of the dark and your other colors will show up. So I'm just experimenting with different colors in her face. I'm trying to figure out what shadows I want and what colors I want the shadows. So you may see me go back and redo this a couple of times. After I have all of my colors in there and I have a solid foundation, I like to go in and add the midtones, and then I like to go in and add highlights. And I'll add usually 2 or 3 layers of highlights depending on the drawing. And sometimes I get a little heavy-handed with my highlights, so I like to put those whites on a separate layer so that I can use the opacity feature and tone them down sometimes. And then sometimes I usually take them out if I overdo it, because you don't want your character to look too plasticky or too fake. It's nice to add highlights. It's kind of like icing on the cake. You don't want to overdo it, but you do need them there. So yeah, just go around and make sure that you're layering all of your colors up properly. If you need some help with this, do some color studies so that you know what colors work well together and what colors don't work together. So before you get into colors, you should read up on color theory and also have some swatches in mind or have a color pattern in mind so that you're staying within the family of colors that works together.